Welcome back to Dream Loudly, and I'm Possible Original Show. We are your hosts, Micah Lancaster and Bryce Stanhope. And today we're going to go over illogical assumptions. We're going to go over some Captain Obvious statements. And I wanted to start off by basically going over a thread of comments from one individual on Instagram. And basically, one thing that I always try to tell people, because the common thing in social media is that people always just say, don't respond to haters, don't respond to critics, which is one of my pet peeves, because why?
Yeah.
I think people always assume that if you're responding to them, that they're underneath your skin and you're sitting there thinking about it.
They own it. They own the rent-free in your head.
Yeah, like they're just in your head.
Yeah.
And so what? Before I go into it, when I respond to people on social media and I'm responding to negative critics or hate or whatever, number one, I think it's entertaining at times.
Yeah.
Number two, I'm doing it to educate people. Because if all you do is leave up the hate and then people are reading the comments and no one ever addresses that, how do they ever know where you stand on that? Mm-hmm. So I always say, if you're going to be in education, which we're in education, then one of the best opportunities we have is to respond to those people, to not only try to educate them, practice educating them, but also educate people who are looking at the comments. But I wasn't ever able to get through to this individual. We had a agree to disagree on his side. This is just my opinion on his side, which I also love. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to read just his part of the conversation, and then we'll talk intermittently, and then we'll jump into some Captain Obvious statements. You ready?
Yep.
All right, so section 1. Let me just set the scene. I posted a turn plant technique of using our drill mat system, where a player plants their outside leg, slightly turning that foot towards the inside so they can have a better turn plant, get good, hip engagement. Great technique for players to know. Can be more on the advanced side. So I teach this. Now, that's all the context. That's all I did. I just taught this. So this person barges into the comment section, and I'm going to have a good example to go over this in a section. This is what they said. If a player practices basic ball handling and tightens up that handle, shoots 500 to 700 shots a day, runs 2 miles hard every day, and plays 2 or 3 days a week, they won't need all these tricks. They can just play the game the right way. Less is more. So, let's discuss this, because this will kind of flow into Captain Obvious statements, but also just, where are you coming from?
Yeah.
Let's talk about logic. You ready?
Well, I think there's a lot of vagueness there, and we talk about vagueness in a lot of people's statements in general, because again, walk up to a kid and be like, hey, practice the basics and just tighten up that handle. You gave me nothing to work on.
And run 2 or 3 miles a day.
Yeah, which granted, if I did run and sprint 2 miles a day very, very quickly, that's actually not going to do a lot for me either, because I'll tell you from personal experience. I ran cross country in high school thinking it was going to make me a better basketball player. It killed my athleticism because we were running 2 to 3 miles every day, and it wasn't doing anything for me. So that's not good advice either, to run 2 miles every single day.
But I think this is common advice, which drives us crazy as trainers who actually get into details and actually help players overcome, the negatives about them, whether or not be size, speed, whatever. But let's go ahead. Let's line up. You take a group of 5th graders. And I just want you to imagine, in your head, you're a 5th grader, and I just say, listen, I want you to practice basic ball handling and tighten up your handle. Shoot 500 to 700 shots a day. Run 2 miles every day and play 2 or 3 days a week. You're welcome. How many players would be able to take that recipe and convert it into success? Yeah. And the answer would be whoever was already pretty good to begin with.
It'd be the naturals.
Yeah, which is what we always talk about. So this is just that Captain Obvious type of statement. So, but let's move on, because it didn't stop here. This person was ready to preach. All right. We have too many players today that may be able to do all those dribble moves, but can't consistently hit a 1 dribble pull-up or a catch-and-shoot 3, but they're spending their time learning to do more to perform less.
Thought you were going to keep going there.
No, that's it. We're going to break it up.
So, from our perspective as skill trainers, how many times do we have players in here that can actually do those moves? Very seldom. And I think we've talked about this in a past podcast a little bit, where people don't really know what skill looks like. They see a player move a ball kind of back and forth, and they're like, oh, they have it. They have that move. But they don't use it, they can't knock down a shot, whatever. For the most part, we don't see a lot of players who actually have moves down. They might have one or two that they're okay at, but like, we ask a kid to come in and do a drag dribble. He gets the ball underneath his leg, but there's a lot of issues there. There's no turn plant. There's no timing. He's not floating as he plants. It's underneath his legs too early. So they don't really have these moves. They kind of mask it a little bit. They do something, but it's not really an intangible that they have that they could do in a game. The other part of it is their ability to, knock down a shot. This is most of the stuff that coaches work on with players. That's why, for instance, we don't tend to do a lot of that. Coaches are handling spot shots. Coaches are handling, what shots they take on their team in their game. So I think there's just a mix of an understanding there still of what we do.
Might I say an illogical assumption?
Yeah, like you saw one video or maybe a couple over time, and you assume that that's all we do. Like we don't.
What does this person do? Like he's already kind of told us. If you go into his workouts, what are you going to do?
Basic ball handling, you're going to run a lot.
You're going to run a lot, basic ball handling, and you're going to take a lot of shots.
Play some games.
Yeah.
You're going to play games
You got to play some games. So that's what his workouts are going to be. And this is why we don't do that type of stuff all that often, is because people like this are already doing it. And that's what's amazing to me.
It's not hard to find.
It's
out there.
What we've mentioned before, common bread and common water. Yep. And so these people are typically the ones who barge into the comment section and demanding more common bread and more common water because they have this feeling that all these kids don't have the basics, that basics are just lost in the game of basketball. And so you should basically never do anything advanced because no one has anything down at the basic level. So that's pretty much the message here. And what this is he's really mainly talking about priorities at this point, right? And we're going to get into that as we go here of the whole, don't crawl before you have to crawl before you walk before you run. And so when I mentioned, look, you're talking more about balance, I'm just trying to talk about a technique. Then obviously he led up with, let's not try to put the cart before the horse. Keep grinding, my friend. Which, by the way, side note, when people tell me to keep grinding, they're basically throwing me an insult. That is always, when someone comes up to me, or on Instagram, I should say, and they'll say, you know what, I just really appreciate your marketing, or, I love your business mind, or whatever that is.
I hate what you do, but I respect your grind.
Right, so let me just go ahead and say this right now, that I always see through that. I don't really care if you respect my grind. Let's
just
talk about basketball.
Just tell me you hate me. Just tell me you don't like me.
I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with it.
I'm okay with you saying, look, I don't like what you do, and I do it differently. Cool. But when trainers are doing I really appreciate or respect your grind, those are backhanded.
Yeah, it's not like I'm going to turn around and be like, oh, thanks.
Yeah. So, but anyway. And then he says, I'm just saying, let's make sure we're teaching the right things to the right people. My opinion, you should master the basic first. You would teach geometry, algebra, etc. before teaching them to add and subtract. So we have a difference of opinion in this regard. When you skip steps, it always causes problems when pressure is applied. Just saying. By the way, do we have a difference of opinion? We do. But did I say anything about the difference of opinion? No. I just posted about a footwork. Context.
A single set of footwork.
Just
one.
I taught footwork. And this person barges in and has this whole thing about don't put the cart before the horse. You got to walk before you run. Who does he think that I'm even talking to right now? And I'm imagining him saying, before the video even starts, okay, 7 and 8 year olds, here's the footwork that I'd like to teach you today. But I didn't do that. I just taught footwork to a massive audience of everyone who's on social media, which according to the rules and regulations of social media should be older people. So anyway, that's just mind-boggling to me, which I'll get into in a second. And then he said, I'm going to clear it up for you. If a player has mastered the fundamentals of the game, I think these moves are okay to teach. Oh, thanks. I mean, I was teaching them to obviously an advanced concept to possibly advanced people, but thanks for now clarifying that it's okay to teach. Yeah. And then he says, if they can't consistently make a left-hand layup on either foot, shoot off the glass, 1 and 2 dribble pull-ups, then they need to go back to the basics. All right. I want people, so a lot of our examples are going to be trying to get people to think in a more logical, down-to-earth way. Yeah. So I want you to picture this example. I'm a math teacher. Now, as a math teacher, I sometimes teach addition and subtraction. As a math teacher, I sometimes teach geometry and algebra. So what has happened here is that whenever I'm in my algebra class teaching kids algebra, I get these guys barging into my algebra class telling all the kids to go back to the basics and go back to addition and subtraction. What in the world is this? Like, can I just be an algebra teacher teaching algebra to my algebra students without people coming in and telling me I got to go back to the basics? That's what we have to deal with on social media. It's like he's making the assumption, because I'm teaching something that looks advanced, that I never teach basics.
I remember a few months ago, somebody barged in and said, what was it? You never shoot floaters. You never teach shooting floaters off like 2 feet or something like that.
Yeah.
Micah Lancaster doesn't believe in floaters off 2 feet.
Yep, I saw that. It was on Twitter.
And I was
tagged, and they said, yeah, Micah Lancaster doesn't teach 2-foot floaters, and that was all.
But like, it's just like stuff like that. It's like, it's people making assumptions, and we've had this work out in really good ways. There was an NBA player that was kind of, digging through your stuff, was a hater at first, and then became a huge fan after sitting there and actually watching.
We get that all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue most people have. And again, I hate to get into the culture of the world, but like, people watch 5 seconds of a video and they make a full assumption that that's all you do, that's all you ever did. It's like every player comes with us, all they ever work on is a turn plan. That's it. For an hour.
Look, you got 1 minute on Instagram to teach one thing, maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be, and we can go into it, I'm not going to be the guy that teaches 5 or 6 things on an Instagram post and just lists it off. Here's the 5 finishing moves, boom, 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 that teaches nothing, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to spend a minute to a minute and a half teaching real detail. And somehow, in teaching that detail, everyone wants to assume that because you taught that, you don't teach anything else.
Yeah.
It'd be like, I notice you eating broccoli, and I say, hey, Bryce, why don't you try some fruit? You don't seem, you obviously hate fruit because you're eating broccoli. It's just bad logic.
Yeah.
Can I do both? Can I please enjoy my fruits and my vegetables, please?
Yeah, and I think that's one mixed thing that I think a lot of people get just about, all of our trainers at I'm Possible for the most part. There's nothing in the checklist that we don't teach. There's even at times that we teach an overhand layup. If I have you power stop really tight to the rim and your only real option is overhand layup or up and under, we take the overhand layup. We just typically don't have to teach that. People have already taught that to you. But like, again, we get a young kid that, I teach kids how to get into a lefty layup all the time because there is a weird technique to that because you're used to having your left hand. Now you got to flip it. So like, there's nothing we don't teach from a skill perspective. There's just things we typically don't have to touch. But there's also the side of it that, like, okay, through social media, yeah, I'm probably not going to break down an overhand layup. There's plenty of that information out there. There's plenty of that it's not as needed from us. People don't come to us for that. They're trying to constantly find that next level of their game, and that's what we do.
So imagine if someone traveled to us for training, and I always started the exact same way. Let's first make sure you can do a normal pound dribble the ball up and down. Now we're going to do a second, a second step finish for a layup, making sure you can do an overhand layup. That would be a very, very bad business and an unnecessary way to train people.
Yeah.
This whole idea that you have to always do things in order or you're going to somehow screw people up is the biggest illogical, insanity that exists in basketball. How about this? How about when I see a player for the first time, I challenge them. I see what they're made of, knowing that nothing's going to get messed up. I'm going to challenge their ball handling, challenge their feet, challenge their shooting, challenge their finishing. And then through that process, you can see what they don't have. And if they need to, you can regress back, break it down back to an overhand basic layup. The fact that they want us to start there because that's all they know or that's all they do is the insanity of it. You can go back. I see you can't do it. Now I regress. We call it loop training. Whenever someone goes through the I'm Possible system, they learn both the advanced and the basic. But what we teach is start somewhere around the middle. Allow them to fail. See their mistakes. Backtrack to those mistakes and build them up from there. Because I don't need to bring someone through a basic pound if they already have it. But I will find out if they have it through the process of training. But you don't need to do that by barging into an algebra class and telling everyone they need to learn addition and subtraction.
Well, I think the rules are what people get so stuck on because that's the way they trained it. So that next person should too, because they don't want to believe that they were a bad basketball player either. So everybody believes that they were the greatest basketball player on social media. So I think it's like, okay, I learned how to do this in the beginning, so that's how all players should learn. But I just have a good example from even yesterday's training session I just had. Had a girl that had just found out she just started playing basketball 4 or 5 months ago. At first, I just thought she was terrible because she was terrible. We skipped right past overhand layups because I already assume her probably middle school coach is handling overhand layups.
How dare you?
She still couldn't make overhand layups. We went right into scoops though. Very fast, very athletic. So every session, all she does with me is scoops. She can make almost every overhand layup she can take now, and this is what we have found out. There are things, the touch it takes to make a scoop is much more advanced than a touch it takes to make an overhand layup. If I get you good at scoops, I can almost guarantee you'll be immediately good at overhand layups. You probably don't even have to practice them because how easy that movement is. And again, coaches handle that stuff. I'm not going to go over something your coach already went over that kind of neglects the fact of like why you came to me in the first place. If you need to get good at basic stuff, and I assume when people say basics, it's overhand layups, two-step finishing, some sort of probably jump stop, catch and shoot that. Guess what? Go work out with your high school and middle school coach.
You're going to get all of it.
They'll do all of that for you. Do not hire a trainer to do that with you. It makes no sense.
Skills build skills, and we talk about that a lot. But just to stay on that, you have it spot on. If you want to do that stuff, go see this person who shot me that text message, which is every coach, and they will take care of all the basics for you. There's a few things that I would put in a list of don't see a trainer for this. Don't see a trainer for the basics that anybody can teach. And don't see a trainer just to play games.
Yeah.
A lot of trainers are simply doing small-sided games and playing pickup in their training sessions. I'm just trying to figure this out. You're paying to go play pickup? Like, that's an incredible... Like, I used to find that stuff for free.
There's one other issue I have with that realm, and I don't know if that's part of what we have on this one. I think that's a different day. But, like, people still don't understand that the whole playing pickup concept is not the same as what they are doing. Pickup used to be you go to the gym, there was no coach there, there was no one there dictating anything, other than if you took a bad shot, another person in the game probably getting a little mad at you about taking that shot. In all these pickup sessions, you still have these trainers talking to players about the mistakes they're making. They're still trying to dictate what players are doing. So you come and play a game of 3-on-3, and you essentially still have a coach there telling you what's right or wrong.
Throwing their bias on you.
Yeah, so you've already created another atmosphere of what these players already have. Versus the pickup we played, you went to a park, maybe you were lucky to have 10 people there.
For free.
For free. Never had to pay for it. Some people were good, some people were bad. And you just played. You made mistakes, you learned through it, maybe you had another peer get on you. But there was no one really dictating right and wrong. There was no one really telling you like, hey, you should have done this instead. You just kind of learned on your own. The problem with what I'm seeing trainers do and what we're seeing trainers do with these pickup games and their sessions, blah, blah, everything's still dictated. It's the same thing that when you go to practice with your coach. You backdoor cut and you blow an overhand layup. He's going to blow the whistle. You guys all have to run, blah, blah, blah. They've created the same coaching situation. It's not pickup. It's dictated coach, gym, camp, basketball type stuff. Like it's not real pickup.
Not only that, is when you train, there's difference in skills. So, and we have the ability to train players with very different skills in the same training environment because we can challenge them and regress and all this type of stuff. But the playing is the same thing. So imagine you come to us, you pay us to train you, and we say, hey, congratulations, for the next hour, you're going to play one-on-one against Jimmy. You don't know how good Jimmy is. Yeah. I don't want to pay to play Jimmy one-on-one. How about after the session, I get Jimmy's number, and we can go and have a play date sometime. Yeah. But that's what's happening quite a bit. So I would say don't pay trainers for stuff like that unless they are geniuses at basketball and they can teach you how to have a great identity, which could be talking about mainly high school and college players. Yeah. Now, Captain Obvious statements I want to make sure we have time for, because this all is basically a Captain Obvious topic right now. So the Captain Obvious statement we just talked about, so I want to jump into it, would be just play more. When people look at what we just posted on it and be like, hey, you don't need any of that, just play more, just play the game. So before we dive into the topic, I'm going to just go over a real life example to let everyone at home understand a good way to think about this. So the restaurant example. So I go to the restaurant and I see that you're eating a steak.
Yep.
And so I walk over to your table and I say, you just got to drink water, man. That's what this is.
Yeah.
I'm not even paying attention, if you have water on the table, whatever. I'm just making the assumption that if you're at a restaurant eating steak, you just got to have water.
Yeah. You
just got to have more water. How obvious is that? Because what I'm seeing is that when people are training, it's like nowadays, if you train, people are like, you don't got to train, just got to play more games. Well, why are we making the assumption they're not playing to begin with? Playing is the most common thing players do. We just talked about the difference of that.
It is by a mile.
And so don't tell people not to train and just play. How about, here's a genius idea. How about you can do both?
Yeah, crazy.
That's amazing.
Crazy concept.
I think we just revolutionized things. Imagine when people train with us, they can also go and play games.
If there's anything that players do more than anything right now, it's playing games. So if that logic even made any sense, we would have every kid would be good. I don't know a single kid who doesn't play games. I don't even know what the number is anymore. I just remember the AAU program way back in the day. Those kids were going to the championship every single weekend, which means every weekend they're playing 12 probably plus games. Now you add that up in from 6th grade all the way to, they've played plenty of games. And it's not what most kids are missing.
And I'm trying to think of how many parents would actually have that plan for their kids. Be like, you know what? I know how we're going to take you to the next level. We're just going to play a bunch of games.
Yep.
How many are trying? I'm really curious how many are literally thinking that that would work.
Yeah.
Because obviously you better hope that your kid's a natural at that point.
I think playing games is just FOMO. It's the fear of missing out. Everybody else is all playing games and stuff. And then, I got to be there too because everybody else does.
And when people say it, it's just like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, you should play.
Yeah.
Look, yep, I'm not saying don't play. Training with me does not mean I'm saying don't play.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and put that out there. However, you should not just play and not train. Can we have both, please?
Yep.
So that's Captain Obvious statement number 1. Captain's Obvious statement number 2, and I'm going to let you do the example on this one. Skills won't matter if you don't have IQ. Hold on, before you go.
Okay.
One of the things that you understand when you've matured in the game of basketball is that you realize that skills don't matter if you don't have IQ. Give me a good real life example.
You can't drive a car without keys.
Oh man, that's true.
You also can't drive a car without gas.
Mind blowing.
You may have a car, but if there's no tires on it, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I think you just revolutionized my whole life.
But it's just like I don't know if it's for clicks. I don't know if it's for views. I don't know if it's to reach out to that audience of because there's things you can say on social media that people will just engage with. But I'm not going to dilute myself for just getting clicks and views. It's obvious. We've seen players like that. Great skill, no IQ.
But what's the point? What's the point of this message?
None.
Once again.
0.
You know what? All these skills you're working on won't matter if you don't know how to play basketball. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I thought that I didn't have to know how to play basketball.
By the way, I at times, and this may not be always true, I at times feel like players actually understand how to play basketball more. They just lack skill and ability, so it makes them look like they can't play basketball.
Exactly. And then when people see them, these trainers can't identify that they lack skills, lack techniques. Mm-hmm. We've talked about that a lot. Fake skills, whether or not you can't identify good technique or bad. You don't really know if they're good at that thing or not. And then when they can't execute in the game, you just think,
low IQ.
Low IQ these days.
IQ sucks.
Man, by the way, will we please just go back and watch ourselves play in high school and college so we can get rid of this whole, that it's...
I never used to make mistakes.
The game is in such a horrible place these days. Go back and look at the way you played in high school, and I should say, my teammates in high school. We all weren't very good yet.
No.
When I go back and look at it, oh my gosh, the level of competition. I was all state, but look who I was playing against.
Yeah.
Now when I go back in high school, guess what? I see the same crap.
It's no
high
different.
School players suck.
It's no different.
Can we just go ahead and say that? No one is good yet in high school. Even the good players aren't good yet in high school. Even if they're McDonald's All-American, they're still not good yet in high school, not at the level that we would expect.
Yeah.
So we always used to tell that to our elite players is, guess what? You won't ever be good until you're a pro.
Yeah.
But besides that, this is just such obvious stuff.
Yeah.
So the third example, and go ahead and read that to me because I got a glare.
Pass, cut, make shots.
Oh, yes. The pass, cut, and make shots. And what's my written example up there?
Grind example.
The grind example, yes. So the other thing would be when people are seeing training and the skills, and then they would say, you know what? All you need is just to pass, cut, make shots. They might even throw in their dribble. You got to be able to pass, cut, dribble the ball, and make shots. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
That's revolutionary too. And so just the grind example would be, what's the grind example, Bryce?
Yeah, you lost me on that one.
The business, the motivational, the grind. You know what? Keep your head down.
Yeah.
Just grind. Like that's like the classic motivational message that helps nobody.
All the YouTube videos of like, I always forget what it is. Like you gotta want it more than breathing.
Oh,
it's just trying to hype people up to hype people up.
That's a classic one.
Yeah, and it's a great video.
And it's not hating on the guy.
Hey, I love Eric Thomas. He's got some hype videos out there. But if you listen to the majority of even motivational speakers, they're not saying anything revolutionary. They're saying really basic statements, but they got a good voice, and you throw a soundtrack behind it, and it sounds great. Same thing. You hear a player go, you got to be able to make, you got to be able to cut, you got to be able to defend, you have to be able to make shots. I don't know many players who can't actually do that at a certain level. Like, okay, like those are skills you still have to work on and abilities you have to work on. But like, if all I can do as a player is pass, cut, and make shots, what type of a player am I?
You are a role player, sir.
At 6'1", how far am I going to make it?
Not very far.
Now, if I'm 6'9",
you'll be okay.
Yeah, I'll be fine.
That's a good rule anyway. 6'1", might have problems. 6'9", you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I'll be a good middle school player, maybe a decent high school player, but I'm not. No college coach is going to be like, man, that 6'1" 2 guard that can pass, cut, and make shots.
And set good screens.
Yeah, set good screens. Like, they're not going to care about that.
This whole, and I think this is mainly from coaches who just want to use these messages to control the kids in their team because they don't like it when they can't control the role players. Mm-hmm. And so now they're afraid that this revolution is going to rise up against them, that all these kids are going to get so much skill and they're going to get so much confidence and the coaches will never be able to control them and all of a sudden they're going to lose control of their whole team. Yeah, I mean, so they create this. And I think that's where a lot of the messages come from. But, and I don't know if we're going to have time for it. We're going to touch on later on the overly basic teaching that's happening. We got 7 minutes. They can see you do that.
I know, but it can be on you while it talks on that.
No, it can't. Not always. Not on YouTube.
Oh, shoot. My bad.
Hey, so Bryce was expecting for me to edit that, and I'm not going to. He just peeked at the camera for YouTube. And
my bad.
It can't always be edited out like that. And by the way, we don't edit stuff on these. These are pretty live.
Not really.
So he jumped to a conclusion.
My bad.
So we're probably not going to do the overly basic today. We're going to go back to that because that's a big, deeper message. But I think the main thing is the captain obvious statements that are out there in the basketball world are just so unnecessary. We get it, guys. You need to be able to do basics. You need to be able to pass. You need to be able to cut. You need to be able to make shots. And I don't think just because people are training for the advanced things that they don't also understand that. Yeah. Now, are players always willing to do those little things? No. And it's the same if you go back in the older days of any generation of playing basketball. Some players didn't want to move without the ball. Some players didn't want to do the basic things when they played. It doesn't mean you don't train the rest.
You definitely have players who are stuck the other way too, that all they do is train the basics so they remain basic. Yeah, they could be captain reliable. Like I got my kid out here. I played with a kid in college that our coach loved him just because he once in a while caught a backdoor pass. Like loved him for that. That's really all he did. He played defense and would backdoor cut. That's about it. So a lot of people get more stuck in the basics, and that's why they struggle anywhere past that. Because if that open, overhand layup, that cut isn't available, what else do they do at that point?
The other weird thing that's happened over the past 10 years of being a trainer is in the beginning when I trained, coaches had a negative connotation about trainers for just giving their players things they didn't want them to use. So it was more so of, I don't want my players to be able to dribble when they shouldn't be dribbling. I don't want them to shoot fadeaways. Yeah. So there was this fear that you were going to give them stuff that was unnecessary. Now what's really weird is the hate has changed, not just to that, but to, I need you to do my job for me.
Yeah.
I need you to teach cutting, passing, and defense.
We need
Coach,
to talk on that in another podcast too. That's a good one.
why am I needing to do your job for you all of a sudden? Do you not remember how to teach passing, cutting, and defense? They're not coming to me for that. They're expecting to get that from you. Maybe it's that you don't know how to coach. Maybe you're slacking on that and you don't know how to get into the effort side of your players. But don't start blaming trainers for that.
Yeah.
Like, we need to all of a sudden do your job. You're with them more than anybody else.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone is seeing a trainer more than they're seeing their coach. I just don't think that's happening.
No,
If you're with
no
your coach
chance.
5 to 6 days a week,
Multiple hours too. You're with a coach probably 2 to 3 hours a day.
so you have plenty of influence. So the issue is that more trainers need to be doing things they're not getting from their coaches instead of trying to do the exact same thing that they already get from you.
Yeah.
And so obviously that's what we're trying to get trainers and players to understand, is that we're going to give you more. It's not that I'm only teaching algebra,
Yep.
but I am going to skip the addition and subtraction if you already have that, and I'm going to give you the rest. And if you don't have addition and subtraction, and I can see that through the algebra, then we can send you back to the basics to work on it to make sure that everything's working together. That can happen in training. And so if by the way, if you want more information on this, here's what I would suggest you do. Coach or a trainer. If you really want to know what we do, sign up for our IPT Elite Skill membership. It's $49 a month, easily the best deal out there.
Yeah.
You get
Without
all
saying.
of our training programs. So that's over 13. Now it's 14. We have Footwork 1, Footwork 2, Shooting 1, Shooting 2, Finishing 1, Finishing 2, All Around 2, Movement Essentials, In-Season Essentials, and our new Drill Mat system. We have a kids program. We have an I'm Possible Live program. All of that, our shooting challenge form, it's all there for all of our members, over $2,000 of training programs. And you can see the whole spectrum.
Yep.
How we have advanced things and how we have more basic things and how it's all mixed together in a checklist approach. And all of our members can attend any of our clinics nationwide for free, which are, $150 a piece. And so just by being a member paying $49 a month, you can go to those clinics for free. You get all of that as a member. So check that out, even if it's just for a month, to see what this is. Because players literally can learn it all, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
So if you are in our comment section, don't barge into my algebra class and trying to tell everyone they need to learn addition and subtraction. Just wait until they're out of the class and you can teach them addition and subtraction on your own. But that's our examples today. We have a lot more coming. We'll see you again next Wednesday for our Dream Loudly show.